host for Walpole Green. Each month, we will present to you a program focused on the effects of climate change and what we can do about it. I'm a member of Walpole Green. Walpole Green is a group of Walpole citizens dedicated to a healthy environment and to achieving 100% renewable energy. We believe in protecting our natural resources and working to address the climate crisis in Walpole, our state, our country, and the world. I am proud to present to you the founders of Walpole Green, Philip Jaworski and Jean Duffy. Philip has been a Walpole community activist for over 40 years. In 2016, he and Jean Duffy became co-chairs of the Walpole No Gas Pipeline, a group opposed to the Access Northeast gas pipeline. This group evolved and changed its name to Walpole Green in 2019, with both remaining chairs. Philip is currently co-chair of Walpole Green, chair of the Walpole Peace and Justice Group, president of the Friends of the Walpole Public Library, and serves on several town boards and committees. Since 2016, Jean was co-chair of the Walpole Green, formerly No Walpole Gas Pipeline. A 50-year resident of Walpole, Jean has been a volunteer at the United Church, the Council on Aging, and the former Center for Community Counseling and the United Way. Jean is retired. She was formerly in human resources in the biotech, pharmaceutical, and high-tech industries as a consultant, generalist, and recruiter. Well, welcome, Philip and Jean, and thank you so much for joining us for our first program of Walpole Green. So Philip, I'd like to ask you the first question, if that's okay. And why was Walpole Green created? And if you, in doing that, if you can include the history.
First of all, Ellen, thank you so much for doing this show. I think it's so important that people have more avenues to find out information. Certainly, as you said, climate change is so important. And certainly thanks to Tamara Green and Walpole Media TV for hosting this. So I'm going to show a few pictures. As you said, Walpole, the origins of Walpole Green is in the Walpole Gas Pipeline group. And that goes back to 2016 when the group formed. And the people may not remember, but there was a proposal to put a $3 billion gas pipeline. It was going to go through a number of communities. We were going to be part of that with a gas loop. There was a lot of other towns that formed no town gas pipeline, like Sharon. So we also formed a group. And what's important to know is that our opposition to the pipeline was not because we didn't want it in our backyard. It was because with climate change and the direction to get off fossil fuels, it was a wrong decision to invest $3 billion in infrastructure for a gas pipeline that was not going to be usable in 10, 20, however many years. So our opposition was all around climate change and doing what was right for the environmental future. So we started our group, and this is a picture of us at Walpole Day in 2016. And one of the things we did is we were one of the supporters of a march from along the route of the pipeline, including through Walpole to Sharon. So we were very active in standing out and making our voices known. This is us at the State House. So we did lobbying at the State House, our state officials. And then what happened was the Attorney General made a ruling that the utility companies, electric companies, could not tax the consumer, the ratepayers for the cost of the pipeline. And it was that ruling that really ended it. Now, along the way, Walpole, no Walpole gas pipeline, we introduced an article at town meeting, or members of town meeting did that on with this, on behalf of Walpole Green, that passed, that was in opposition to the pipeline. The select board also passed a resolution opposing the pipeline. So those articles, those resolutions were very, very important because it brought this issue to the public eye more, and it opened up more conversations. So then we formed Walpole Green, and we did that because our real concern was climate change. And climate change requires all of us to do something, and we wanted to have a community group that was working towards addressing climate change. And one of the things we did is we worked on an article at town meeting. This would have been 2017, make sure I have it right now, top of my head, where Walpole set an agenda, set a goal, a non-binding goal to get to 100% renewable energy by 2050. And this was in support of the Massachusetts mandate to get to 80% less fossil fuel emissions, natural gas emissions by 2050 relative to 1990. And again, having this article at town meeting, even though it was non-binding, but it resulted in just a really good conversation to get people more engaged, to understand what climate change is, how towns, how individuals, how we need to work with our state, federal government to address it. And this is a more recent vigil that we participated in with Walpole Peace and Justice Group. This is from Earth Day 2021, where, again, just looking at the criticality of doing something to climate change, our message, save the planet. So that was something that we did. So Walpole Green continues on, and we'll talk a lot more, I'm sure, about some of the things we're doing. But that's the main history.
Okay, thank you. So, so you could say that the gas pipeline is a dead issue at this point.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So Jean, one of the goals of Walpole Green is for Walpole to become a green community. Can you explain what a green community is?
Green Community is a state program where certified communities are eligible for grants and technical support to help them reduce energy and energy costs by implementing green energy projects in municipal buildings, facilities, and schools. The certification process to become a green community included 5 criteria. One was zoning as an of right siting of renewable or alternative energy facilities. Example is zoning for solar farms. An expedited application and permitting process of a maximum of 1 year. Third is creating an energy use baseline inventory of how much energy the town is using now, and adopting an energy reduction plan of 20% over 5 years. The fourth is purchasing energy efficient fuel vehicles. Fifth was adopting a stretch code, the new stretch code. The new stretch code for green communities was a little bit more stringent than the previous building code, but we needed to get that adopted. There are 280 green communities in Massachusetts, and Walpole became a green community in April of 2021 after Walpole Green worked on this project for several years. The initial grant that Walpole received was $166,000, and that was used to purchase the Eversource town municipal lights and convert them to LED lights, which will save energy. Walpole Green contributions to that process were that we brought the Green Community Program to the Select Board and the town meeting. Walpole Green laid out the Green Community application process and how to do it. We helped the town get a $5,000 grant to hire a consultant to work on the Green Community process. And we're influential in getting a free intern to work on the transportation part of the application process. Now that Walpole Green is a green community, we need to present annual reports to the state on how well we're doing with our energy conservation methods. And we're also eligible to compete for additional grants. The first grant was an initial grant to the town of Walpole, but any future grants we would get, we have to compete with other green communities. The state usually puts about $15 million or so into the Green Communities Fund annually for additional grants.
So about the intern, do either you or Philip know how the intern contributed and where the intern's from?
She did the inventory of all the vehicles. I was actually surprised to learn how many town vehicles we had. I didn't realize that. So she did the inventory of how many vehicles we had, how much gasoline they used. So she could draw a comparison. Is it less expensive to own and operate electric vehicles versus gas-powered vehicles and so forth? So that's the part of the application process that she did.
Now, she was a student at MIT going for her master's in, I think it was sustainability, and this was her project. And we were very fortunate that she reached out to say, gee, I'm looking for a town that can help me do that. And as Jean said, it really worked well for Walpole.
Okay, anything else that you want to talk about in Walpole becoming a green community?
So one thing is that, you know, by the way, we want to highlight that Ben Bear on the select board was who really championed this to get it through. But as Jean said, we were working on this for several years, and it's the amount of money the state allocates to the program is the same every year, $15-20 million. So now that there's more towns in it, we're coming in late. You know, of the 351 towns, as she said, 289 of them now are green communities. So it's unfortunate that we're coming a little late because there's going to be less money. And an example of that, Westwood has been in the Green Communities program for several years now. They have gotten almost over $1 million of grants over the years. But hopefully, maybe the state will up the amount of money, and that would be good to have.
Any suggestions of how the viewers can be influential in that? Upping the money?
They can reach out to our state legislatures. There's lots of bills before the State House right now. Every year there's a flurry of bills that get submitted on the environment, and most of them never go anywhere. I'm not sure if there's anyone specific for the funding of the Green Communities program, but certainly advocating to our state legislators on several of these bills, and even maybe bringing that up as an issue would be a good thing to do as a resident of the town.
Okay, thank you. So can you also talk about what else Walpole Green has been involved with, either Philip or Jean?
I would like to tell you about Walpole Green's recent involvement in the middle school project. We were not a member of the project team, but we did have a voice on the design of the new middle school. Walpole Green recommended sustainable methods of heating and cooling versus fossil fuel methods be used in the design. We notified the team of new incentives and reimbursements available from MassSave and Eversource due to recent state changes in reimbursements. We also notified the team that the town of Walpole had just become certified as a green community. And as a result of that, they would need to comply with the new stretch code that's a bit more stringent than the older stretch business code. More importantly, we recommended hiring a energy consultant with the Eversource monies. The energy consultant did complex energy models and made those recommendations to the energy team during the design. The result was we will be having a net zero ready middle school. It wasn't everything that I would have liked to have hit in the design, like there won't be solar panels, but those can be put in after the build. But net zero middle school to me is a good thing, and it was voted very positively by the voters.
And then they, go ahead, Philip.
I just want to highlight that Jean was really the instrumental in representing Walpole Green and giving all that input. So really kudos to her for being there and for advocating all of these changes.
Yeah. And then because of what your comments, Jean, or your input, didn't they actually go back and redesign the roof?
Well, I wouldn't say they redesigned it. I'm not so sure, but I know that they were more aware of the fact that of what the requirements were to be solar ready. You can't have any kind of obstruction at all. So some things that might not have been considered obstructions would have been.
Okay, thank you. Any other I guess plans or issues that Walpole Green has been involved with that they have been successful with, or what they are working on?
A couple other things. Jean, do you want to? I know we talked.
But we were involved with the plastic bag ban that's effective in March. We didn't originate it. Dakshita and I'm sorry.
Kumar was the woman who started it and
right.
Had an article at town meeting, and we, when we saw that, we recognized how important that was, so we supported it.
We ended up buying and distributing green, environmentally friendly shopping bags at the farmers market during the summer, so people could use those in replacement of the plastic bags that would be phased out over this year. And we also supporting, it's called an Act to Save Recycling Costs in the Commonwealth. And that basically is going at the cost of recycling and also the type of packaging that's being used by manufacturers for goods. So the cost of recycling is so high for towns, and we're trying to push that cost back on the manufacturers, or at least make them more aware and make more environmentally friendly packaging. And that's in the State House now, and we are sponsoring that.
That's so important, because we can recycle all we want to in the world, but the real answer is stopping at the source.
And I know there are some packaging materials that, for instance, can go on fruits and vegetables that you don't even know they're there, but yet that they're organic, and you don't have to even actually take them off the the fruit or the vegetable, because you can eat them. They're digestible. So anything else that you can think of right now that we've worked on?
So one of our members is very active in the Neponset River Watershed Association, and she's been supporting a lot of those things, which we also support. They're putting on the little signs at all of the places where water will rush into the that goes into the draining, the drain basins into the rivers, so that people would know that they shouldn't put down any toxic materials. So she's been doing that, and again, we as a group trying to support those things as well.
Also cleaned out Bird Pond, and that was very successful. So Walpole Green supports those efforts.
And then there's a lot of legislative bills before our own state house, and we're not members of 350 Mass, so that we are, some of us are in some of the groups that they have nodes. Several of us are members of the Franklin node for 350 Mass, but we piggyback on what their legislative agenda is, and also try to follow to lobby on some of these bills. And there's some very important bills before the legislature right now at the state level. And I won't go through a list of them, but we continue to lobby for those. And on occasion, we've gone into the state house when we could do that. But we think it's really important to really get people to contact the legislators and take a more active role in getting these bills passed. And they're all around climate change, and they vary from adding more revenue, more money towards supporting homeowners to change their heating system, to also climate justice, knowing that a lot of communities of color bear a disproportionate amount of impact on fossil fuel, on power plants. So trying to make that more fair, and also giving more subsidies. And one of the things we're seeing happening right now is the Mass Save subsidies are being switched from subsidizing more efficient oil or gas burners to subsidizing, hopefully, heat pumps, so we avoid fossil fuel energy altogether. And that's something that only by way people pressuring the state house that some of these things are even being considered.
Jean, you've actually put in some articles in the Walpole Green Facebook page. Did you want to talk about a little bit about that?
Well, I would like to say that if people would go out to our Facebook page, Walpole Green, there's a lot of information out there, and scroll down because there's many interesting, informative articles about how you can use heat pumps, the benefits of heat pumps, how they work, how to get them installed. And if in first quarter of this year, there's going to be, I think, 4 companies that are coming out with water heaters that will be fueled by heat pumps versus using natural gas. So if you don't want to replace your whole heating system because it's new, maybe something like replacing your water heater with a fuel-based fuel pump water heater is something more reasonable to do. So there's all sorts of things out there. We really try to keep it up to date on things that are helpful for people to do themselves, and what's going on as far as climate change goes anyhow, the science on it and so forth. So those are just a couple of things. I think the heat pumps and information on heat pumps for heating and cooling, and heat pumps for heating your water, those are the big ones that are out there. In addition, there's, I think it's the food, maybe there's some articles out there on food, and but it's a very informative site, so I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah, so if the state is to get off fossil fuels, it would require changing the heating cooling systems of most houses that have already been built, and that's where learning more about heat pumps is the most obvious one that people would go to. There would be air heat pumps as opposed to geothermal, although that's an option as well. And that's also where it gets into the subsidies, the mass save subsidies, because it might be hard for a homeowner to justify buying a new heating system when their system is only 10 years old. So if and the state has a goal of converting 1 million houses off fossil fuel in the next, I forget how many years. That's a daunting goal. But if we're going to meet the climate warming, it's the the Massachusetts Global Warming Solutions Act goals. If the state has any chance of meeting those, that it's going to require those kind of changes. But there's a lot of, as Jean was saying, there's lots of other things that people can do as well. And there's some lighting things, I think, Jean, too, for LED lights.
In addition to LED lights, I think there's information on solar panels also.
So what were some of the roadblocks that Walpole Green encountered in some of its achievements?
Walpole is far behind many communities in reducing its carbon footprint. Many communities have been green communities for years, and as a result of it, have been fortunate enough to get some of these grants over the years. Many towns have municipal buildings with solar panels on them. They have already begun their purchase of electric vehicles and begun the retrofit of their municipal buildings. Walpole moved forward and built the fire station, the police station, the public works building, and also the senior center. And none of these facilities were built solar ready, while there were incentives to do so. So I think reducing the town's carbon footprint and helping the state reach its goals that Philip just talked about is not a priority in Walpole. While we have hired a part-time sort of grant writer, and that's positions shared with 2 other towns, it's not enough. We need the town leaders to prioritize energy reduction and reducing our carbon footprint. And we need to do that by having a position in the town that is responsible for it. Having a part-time grant writer isn't enough. We need a strategy. And aside from the green community energy reduction plan, we need a real green strategy from the town. And it could be some towns, they have groups like Walpole Green for a number of years, and then they get to a point where they realize that really there should be a position in the town responsible for this, because I think it's easier to advocate something from the inside versus from the outside. So we have, and other towns make the responsibility for, green projects and an energy strategy. They build that into a job like the town administrator's job and make that person responsible for aggressive goals and hold them to it in their performance evaluations. So different towns are doing it different ways. But the bottom line is, I think we need the town itself to put reducing our carbon footprint as a top priority in helping reach the Massachusetts goals. Climate change is now. It's going to affect the future for our children and for our grandchildren. We've built the municipal buildings. We've built the town sports field. We also have the approval for the middle school. It's time to focus on being a more energy efficient, greener community and do so aggressively. The time is now to focus. I mean, things are moving very fast in climate change. Climate change is here and we need to respond to it as a town. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would echo that. And one example is the town is always buying new vehicles. So when you buy something, you're expecting it to last, whatever the life expectancy is, 5-7 years. So those decisions you're making today have an impact because you're going to live with it for that amount of time. So that's the challenge, I think, to the town to figure out, should we not be buying more electric vehicles or start buying electric vehicles? And you have to then have the infrastructure to support electric vehicles. So you have to put in charging stations. So all those things need to be done together. And sometimes it might mean we're spending more money up front, but in the long run, it's going to be better for the environment. And I think, as Jean said, the school, the municipal buildings were a good example where we should have done better on solar panels there, given the day and age. I know that we had constraints on funding those buildings, but that should be something we should make a priority now then, to actually retrofit those buildings with solar panels. And one thing about the Green Community grants, towns that have projects at the ready, where they've identified them, they've scoped them out, they're the towns going to get grants the earliest. They're going to continue getting grants. And I think that was one of our messages when we did the article at town meeting to become 100% renewable energy by 2050 for the town. We even said that the reason we're doing that is because the state and the federal level is going to make more grants available, whether it's through the Green Communities Act or other grants. And so we need to be ready to have our projects out there so that we can get in early and take advantage of them, because everybody's going to want to be doing this. Where the mandate to get off fossil fuel is clear. And the longer we delay doing it, the harder it's going to be to catch up, if at all.
What are the future goals, Philip?
So I think climate change is the big one, in the sense of working at all three levels of government, the town, the state, and the federal. And people can do a lot individually, but at the end of the day, in order to really fund the major changes that we need, for example, subsidies for people to change their heating system, that's going to require funds at the state and the federal level. So we need to be active, though, at all three levels. We need to be active doing things at the local level. So doing things like the packaging, getting more efficient packaging, that's an important thing. And then doing things where we're advocating for the town to do the retrofitting buildings, and then at the state level, working to get these bills passed, because a lot of these bills go nowhere. Over 3,000 bills get submitted every session, and relatively few come out, because it can be a very long process with committee hearings, and if a bill doesn't get enough support, it doesn't go anywhere. So that's why we applaud actually 350 Mass, because they're very good at advocating for these things, and we look to work in supporting those initiatives. And at the federal level, Biden has the Build Better, and that's really where the money is to address climate change. And so hopefully that can be worked through Congress, because there's no bigger issue right now facing the world than climate change, climate crisis. So we, as a small group in Walpole, we look to work with the other groups, in as I said, in other groups working on climate change, and add our voice, amplify their messages, and the advocates for Walpole to get more people in Walpole involved.
As an individual, why is fighting climate change important to you?
Fighting climate change is important to me because the stakes are so high. I mean, the fossil fuel industry has had a stranglehold on the federal government for years for approval of pipelines and for getting the industry's subsidies. And when we were in No Walpole Pipeline, we learned about that. We learned how easily they could get approvals for pipelines that weren't needed without fixing leaks in the existing pipelines. So they were trying to create a need where there wasn't a need. So climate change is here now. We need to stop using fossil fuels and stop subsidizing them in their actions. And basically, as I said earlier, our future, the future of our children, the future of our grandchildren depends on it. So to me, it's just the stakes are so high, and it's so obvious that we need to take action and very quickly.
Thank you. Philip?
And I just want to say, if anybody hasn't seen the movie on Netflix, Don't Look Up, they should watch it, because it's a very clear comparison to climate change. For those who don't know the story, it's a comet that astronomers discover is going to hit into the Earth in 7 months or so, and it's all about trying to get attention in the world, politicians, industry, people, and I don't want to ruin the story, but it's very analogous to what's going on now. We say it's the most critical thing facing our world, and the United States has special responsibility for this because we have more resources than any other country, and we also are the ones who benefited from a lot of the carbon dioxide that's already in the atmosphere. So it's really difficult to understand how we can't, as a country, unite around taking real action, and let's not do what they did in the movie and wait too long. And that's the concern now. So I just want to read off. There was an article in the Boston Globe on December 31st. It was written, another study on the fact that the climate change in New England is changing faster than other parts of the country. And we heard the same story because we had a speaker in 2017, Ambrash Kamarkar from the Northeast Climate Center, who spoke in Walpole. It was joined by the Walpole Peace and Justice Group and Walpole Green. And this is the Northeast Climate Center at UMass Amherst. And he presented there how critical it was because New England is seeing, particularly Massachusetts, more impact on climate change. This new study that just came out is even worse. It's predicting that, it's right now, they have, through their analysis, have determined that New England has warmed 3.29 degrees Fahrenheit, 1.82 degrees centigrade from 1900 to 2020. That's more than what the world has as an average has warmed. And Massachusetts is even worse. According to their study, Massachusetts has warmed 1.97 degrees centigrade or 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit over that same time period. And they have Boston having warmed in the winter by 7 degrees Fahrenheit. So Massachusetts has 12 less days of snow cover. And what does this mean? This has a huge impact on us. We may not see it quite yet, but it's there. We certainly know our winters are milder. We're seeing it right now. And that might give us a sense of false security because we might say, oh, that's nice, warmer winters, but it's not nice. It's causing a lot of havoc with nature. There was an article in the Boston Globe recently about the lobsters, that the lobster industry has pretty well collapsed in Connecticut and is now moving, it's thriving in Maine, but that won't go forever. Insects or ticks, that a lot of insects that die out in the winter are not dying out. So our climate, the way we think of New England, we think of this as this moderate, nice 4-season climate. It's changing. So that should be a reminder to us. But again, I just want to go back that if we're going to change and address climate change, we all need to work together. And that's, I feel that there isn't that sense of urgency that we should be, that our country, our state, our local, our town should have. And the fact that even in the state house, bills could go on forever and not get passed, or they get watered down by the time they get passed. It's, now is the time. And one interesting thing is that Biden presented a whole number of things that the United States was going to do at the climate summer in Glasgow. And now, because of what's going on in Congress, many of those may not go through. And if the United States doesn't step up and do our part, the rest of the world's not going to do their things. So it's a huge impact right now. Everything we can do as individuals is so critical. We certainly always need to do what we can do as individuals, and we need to do that because we all make a difference. And just one interesting number I discovered, Gene, that in our contributions to fossil fuels, the biggest contribution to that in the state is transportation to carbon dioxide. But 60% of that is what they call light vehicles, which is cars and small trucks. So getting cars and trucks off the road, getting them electrified, designing cities that don't require people to take their cars everywhere. There's a lot of things that we can do at the design level, but it takes people coming together in order to come to some agreement, some consensus. And right now, sadly, a lot of people claim this climate change isn't real. So it's a hard thing to understand.
Philip, I have to say that I saw Don't Look Up, and it is really powerful and scary. People should watch it.
They should, and it just brought to me, this is what we're doing right now. We're not taking serious. Everybody says, oh, well, if that really happened, if there was a comet coming to the world, we would really do something. Well, would we? And are we now doing it for the comet, the quote comet that's coming towards us right now? So
very true. So I think this is a good place to end because I think it's a powerful ending, and thank you both. And one more question, Philip, who can join Walpole Green and how?
So anyone is welcome to join Walpole Green. We have our Facebook page, and I just want to thank a couple of people at this meeting who do a lot of the updating. Very, very, very much appreciated. They can send an email to info @walpolegreen.org. We don't have a web page, but that's the email address. If you're interested in just being on an email list to get notifications of events we're doing, we'd be glad to add you. And if you're interested in joining the group and actually attending meetings, we'd also be glad if people want to do that as well.
Jean, thank you very much. Philip, thank you for being on our very first program, and hopefully each month we'll present another program related to the climate crisis. And I look forward to speaking to our audience again. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ellen, for doing this. So that's
my pleasure.
It can make a big difference. So, and thanks to Walpole Media TV.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.